Colorado where it was canceled. We didn't know anybody in the town, and we had to get a hotel.
Wow.
But we got away with sleeping on people's couches and floors for a whole month straight.
That's rad.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing this.
You're welcome.
I'm really excited. I've been a huge fan of yours for a number of years. Actually, I have a picture. My son had a chance to meet you at a couple of years ago at the Clash at Claremont. There's a picture of you and him.
Okay.
Yeah. So really excited to meet you and chat with you, especially about your music career, which is really cool. Obviously big into skateboarding, but you have a really cool story as far as what I've been read about the faction and stuff. I'm really excited to hear about the new band.
Yeah, it's we actually called the faction quits right before the pandemic started.
Did you guys play a show at Belly Up, or didn't you jump on stage with somebody at the Belly Up towards the end?
Yeah, that was Millencolin.
Oh yeah, Millencolin, that's what it was.
Yeah, they've been friends of mine since '99.
Wow, that's awesome. Well, I don't know if you mind touching on the faction at all, since it is part of your story, but obviously we'll talk a lot about the new project you have.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. We always start off where you're born and raised in San Jose.
Yes.
What was that like?
What was San Jose like?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was cool. I mean, we had a really good skate and punk rock scene back in the day, in the early '80s. Used to travel to San Francisco a lot to go to shows. We had a couple skate parks there that were built in the late '70s that only lasted for about a year and a half or two, and then ended up closing. And we had to build our own ramps and stuff, you know, back in the day, just to keep the scene going. But you know, it was the start of skateboarding. It was the start of punk rock. It was the start of a DIY revolution.
Sure. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
That is amazing. When you started skateboarding, what drew you to skateboarding? Were you into music first, or did skateboarding kind of lead you into the punk rock like area of your life? Because for me, I was into skateboarding, but I got a lot of bands and learned about a lot of bands from skate videos.
Yeah, I would have to say that skateboarding got me into music, you know.
Okay.
Got me into rock and roll first, because I was brought up on the east south side of San Jose, which was predominantly, you know, African American and Hispanic, and we did not listen to rock and roll. We listened to like soul, R&B, disco. So it wasn't until I went on to the other side of town where it was not predominantly, you know, Hispanic.
Sure.
And that's where the skate parks were, and that's where the locals were listening to rock. So after I got my membership in the probably around '77, I was introduced to the music that skateboarders listened to at skate parks, and that was rock and roll. So
what
I went
AC/DC? Oh, AC/DC. Okay.
AC/DC, Cheap Trick, Aerosmith. You know, I would have never ever even bothered with listening to those bands unless I wasn't connected with skateboarding.
That's cool.
You know, and then that quickly went into new wave, and then from new wave it went straight into punk rock in the early 79, 80, 1980.
Okay. When did you start playing guitar?
Well, I picked up the bass first.
Okay.
And 6 months before we actually went into the studio, pretty much our first gig was 1982. We started the band around 1982.
And was the faction the first band you were a part of?
Yeah,
okay.
that was a faction, was a band that I basically formed from guys I met at the skateboard park that wanted to play music. And we were at that time, me and the singer named his name was Gavin O'Brien. Me and the singer and his brother were going to a lot of local punk rock shows at, you know, just little clubs here and there in San Jose, and then we drive up to the San Francisco to go to the On Broadway, Mabuhay Gardens, and go watch bands that would play up in the city, the city was about an hour away from us. So there was local shows in San Jose, but there were the bigger bands would go to San Francisco.
Okay. And just from going to shows, that kind of gave you guys the bug to want to do that and be a part of that culture.
Well, I was like collecting a lot of punk records, so I have a lot of 45s from back in around 81, 82. And there used to be this little record store on Bascom Avenue that sold punk rock records, and it was called Dedicated Records. And on the wall, I saw this one record with the skateboarder skateboarding on a ramp, and the band members were sitting on the ramp. So I picked it up and it said JFA, and I'm like, what is JFA? And then I saw the band was called Jody Foster's Army, and they were from Arizona. And I decided, I'm going to grab this. These guys skate. They must sound pretty cool. And I listened to it. And then, so I just started wanting to play music as well. And I go, if these guys could be in a band, maybe I can form a little band myself. So I learned how to play the bass and learned a couple songs from different bands that I like Black Flag, Adolescence, the Dead Kennedys, the Ramones. And then I just got together with some friends from the skateboard park, and we started a band.
Wow. And was it all self-taught?
All self-taught. Yeah. I think I took one guitar lesson before I picked up the bass, and wasn't interested in what he was trying to teach me. I just wanted to play like bar chords and stuff. And I just figured that the guitar was super hard and the bass was going to be a lot easier to play. So I picked up the bass. So I started to learn how to play bass before I played guitar.
And how many years did you play bass before you switched over?
Well, let's see. We started the band in 82, and I didn't switch over till 1984.
Oh, okay. So a few years there in the beginning.
2 years. Yeah. And I would pick up the bass here and there. And then, I think I was going to Japan on a trip with Rodney Mullen, to do some demos. And I was listening to my headphones and my little Walkman. And, I think I had the Adolescence, in there. And I noticed there was two guitars, on each ear. And I was thinking, man, I think the band, The Faction, would be really cool if we had two guitars. So I ended up asking our guitar player if I could switch to guitar as well. And he said yes. So we ended up getting a different bass player, and then we became a 5-piece. So the first tour that we did around the US in 1984, I played bass. We did like a little mini tour for a month and traveled all the way down from California, all the way to Florida, all the way up to New York to play CBGBs, all the way across to Colorado. I played bass. My bass got stolen halfway through the tour. Our van got broken into in Ohio, and I ended up not even buying another bass. I'm like, oh, I'll just get another one to get home. So I ended up borrowing a bass from either one of the headlining bands or one of the bands that opening before us, the whole rest of the tour. And then when I got home, I never bought another bass, and I actually ended up buying a guitar instead.
Oh, wow. Was it only your bass stolen, or were other pieces of equipment gone?
My bass and two guitars. One of our guitars was broken in half from the gig the night before, because the guys were they were thrashing so close to us, they ran into our guitars and broke one of them. So two broken guitars and a bass.
Oh my gosh.
It was a good bass too. I was a 4001 Rickenbacker.
Oh wow.
Bass. Yeah, I was super stoked on that bass, and it got stolen.
That's awful.
Yeah, but the good thing is it got me to get a guitar and end up playing guitar. And so we did another tour around the US again in 85, and ended up playing CBGBs once again. And I played guitar there. And actually what was cool was JFA headlined that show.
Oh, rad.
At CBGB. So it was cool, the fact that the band that got me interested in playing music, we ended up playing with them,
Yeah. Did you tell them that story about how you found their record?
Oh, I always tell them that. I always tell them
cool.
whenever we played them. And what's cool is the very last show that we've ever played with The Faction, last a couple years ago, JFA played with us as well.
Really? That's so
Yeah.
rad. That is
Yeah,
rad.
they opened up for us.
That's cool. When you did the first tour with the faction, had you been touring, like, because I know skateboarding, you tour, right? You do demos all across the country, and you talked about going to Japan. And was that something you were already doing prior to the band starting, or was your first kind of touring experience with the faction?
I think my first touring experience in a small band was with the faction.
Oh, it was. Wow.
Yeah, and I was already a pro skateboarder since 1980, so people knew me as a pro skateboarder. So when I went on tour in 84 and 85, there were skateboarders coming to our shows and wanting to just to meet me and invite me to their ramp or something. And that's
cool.
That was kind of a cool thing, because that got people excited about the band and want to come see the band. So it definitely helped hype up, the faction, where people would never even want to come see a show or know who the faction was. The fact that I was in it, a pro skateboarder was in it, it attracted people. So I met a lot of other skateboarders in that time. In 1984, 85, we stayed at a bunch of people's houses. I remember our first tour in 1984 was really cool. For some reason, people always wanted to hang out and talk to us after the show, and we'd always ask them, "Hey, you guys have a place for us to stay?" And they would always offer it. And so we pretty much got away with staying couch surfing the whole tour, except for one show in, I think, Colorado, where it was canceled. We didn't know anybody in the town, and we had to get a hotel.
Wow.
But we got away with sleeping on people's couches and floors for a whole month straight.
That's rad.
Yeah.
I did read something about, sorry, I didn't need to cut you off.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I did read that you guys recorded the first recordings of the faction was done at your house. Is that right?
Well, we recorded some demos and stuff, demo tapes, that got, people interested in wanting to play us on the radio.
Wow.
So we recorded stuff, because there was back in, the early 80s, there were small radio stations like city college radio stations that would play punk music. I mean, you wouldn't hear punk rock on like a major radio station, so it was all the college stations that would play the underground type, music.
That's cool. And what was it like recording in like a legitimate studio for the first time? When did you guys do that?
We did that at Tom Mallon's studio in San Francisco in 1980. I want to say 82 or 3. 83.
Okay.
Yeah, and we recorded
still pretty early on in the band.
Yeah, and like I said, I remember I was in the studio, and I hadn't even been playing for 6 months, and we were in the studio recording an EP, a 6-song EP, and that was called "Yesterday Is Gone." It's a little 45. And that was at a studio, in San Francisco, Tom Allen's. Yeah.
Was it intimidating doing that for the first time, being so new to the instrument?
It was. I mean, definitely, it definitely, you could actually hear all your mistakes, and you had to play everything perfect. So, but since then I've learned a lot. Played in a lot of studios and recorded in a lot of different bands, and it's always a new learning experience going into a new studio, and being in this new band. I've experienced some new stuff as well, like hiring a high class producer to record your record for you, and that changes the dynamic a lot, and it really a producer that really cares about your project is going to really work you and make sure you play everything perfectly. So the end product is amazing.
Yeah, the record is awesome. I had a chance to hear it. Jen sent it to me, and I was still even listening to it earlier today. I really love it. It's really good. And I'm curious to know, because I did read that you guys had started the band during this pandemic, right? It started after the pandemic started, or is that true or no?
I think I guess it started almost right before it.
Before it.
Well, I guess maybe it was a little bit after, because I want to say when our record gets released, September 24th is one of my very first Instagram posts talking about the band.
Really?
We've only been together only a year, not even a year
Wow.
yet.
Wow.
I know.
Because you had just wrapped up the faction. You said that you guys kind of called it quits there towards the end of what, 2019 or 2020 or beginning of 2020?
2020, yeah. We played one last show in San Jose.
That's cool.
You know, and I was already kind of jamming with another band for a while. We were a three-piece and we were looking for a singer, and that's kind of how I found Tim, our singer for Urethane. Was we were trying out singers, and you know, I'd been jamming with this band for about a year prior, and we had about 10 songs, and it was about ready for me to like say, hey, let's try to play some shows, or let's just try to, you know, and this is before the pandemic, and let's get a singer. And so Tim tried out, and he sent me a demo tape, and I played it to the band, and they were just not interested. And I just was really like curious of like why they didn't really want to have Tim be in the band. And they basically said that he just didn't fit the style of music. So I figured that I was like, well, that wasn't the response that I was expecting, because I was really excited about Tim and I was really excited about how he sound. And so that made me think about where I was. And that was the fork in the road that I always talk about, where I had to make a choice to leave this band that I've been jamming for about a year and start this whole new project with Tim, our singer. And my heart went with Tim, and I told the guys I'm leaving the band. So I left a major project to start with Tim, and hindsight and moving forward almost a year later, I'm happy with the decision that I made, because I had my heart set on doing a musical project with Tim. I just loved his voice. I loved the style of songs that he wrote, and I felt like we could work well together.
Yeah, I mean, the product is amazing. How
Thank
did you get together with the other members of the band? Because they're also in other bands. You know, they've got stuff going on, Bomb Pops, and
Yeah. So Dylan used to drum for the Bomb Pops, and Chad is a singer for Skipjack, who's been around San Diego for many years.
Yeah.
And so Urethane started out as a three-piece as well. And we played, so we played about 4 months, just learning songs and pretty much playing a lot of songs that Tim had written. And once again, I was like listening to, some music, and I was thinking, man, I think the band would be so much better if I could play guitar. It would just enhance the band, and plus I just have a love for guitar as well.
Were you playing bass? Sorry,
I was playing bass in Urethane, and I just wanted it to be small and tight knit thing. And so once I decided to go with Tim, I ended up asking Tim if he knew a drummer, and he found one, and that was Dylan. So we practiced with him. He worked out really well. We had a couple practices actually at my house as well. That didn't last too long, because then I think it was it'd be a little too loud for the neighbors,
Sure.
So we ended up getting a practice place, and we were just like practicing, and then I just got this wild hair of like playing guitar again. And so I approached Tim 4 months into this project, and I said, hey, Tim, I really want to play guitar. And he's like, really? He's like, no way. I can't believe that you're asking me this, because he goes, you remember my friend Chad I brought to practice? I'm like, yeah. He's like, he really wants to be in this band, like bad. I'm like, well, if you know him and you trust him, he's in,
Wow.
So Chad joined the band 4 months in, and I swear after the first practice, I think it was about a week later, he brought to the table, he said, hey, I'm friends with these people who run this record label called Cybertrax, Jen and El Jefe from NOFX, and they really like Tim's demo tape, and they want to record us and make a record. So I'm like, no way, let's do it, So so Jen and El Jefe gave us like 3 months to prepare 12 songs to go into the studio. So we worked our butts off to to learn all the rest of the songs that, you know, Tim wrote, and also Chad had brought a song too. And we wrote one, you know, within that time. So we were ready to go in, you know, 10 months after being, you know, together and record an album. You know?
Wow. I
So
love Jen and Hefe's. I mean, their label is great. The bands that they have, and
yeah.
yeah, they're amazing people. But I'm curious to know. So how did you had met Tim and, you know, grabbed him when you were in that other band, and when did COVID happen, and how were you able to continue? Like, did that happen after, and you guys kind of formed the band in the midst of the pandemic, or where timeline wise, where
Well,
did that happen?
I think it was pretty much within that same time that
Okay.
because like I said, it was September, October. It was about September, and when I'm not really sure when people started cracking down on the whole COVID thing,
Okay.
but I want to say it was around the same time.
Same time.
Because I remember when we very first had our practices with Dylan, he was always wearing a face mask. So I never even really knew what Dylan looked like, you know, because he would always show up to practice with a
With
mask.
a mask on.
You know, so we were in a pandemic at that time, you know.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know, and it wasn't like we were worried about playing any shows because there was nothing really going on. So we're just like, hey, let's just get together and, you know, and write some music and form a band. And within this whole pandemic, we were able to have the time to do that. And no one was focused on try to practice to play live. We practiced to record an album, and that's how we came up with the album so quick. You know, we diligently practiced twice a week and really concentrated on these songs were already set in stone as far as what Tim had, but then we kind of added our own flavor to them and rearranged them differently as a band. And then even when we went into the studio with a set of songs, but after 3 weeks of being in the studio, we came out with completely different songs. Where when I came to practice again after doing the studio, I had to relearn all the guitar parts I wrote in the studio because I didn't know them, you know?
Oh, because you guys were working on the record and just kind of writing stuff there.
Yeah, so as we were recording, I was writing riffs on the back couch with acoustic guitar. While they were laying down tracks, I was writing riffs.
Oh, wow.
So it's
So
kind of
you had to go
cool.
back and listen to it and then try to figure out what you did.
Yeah, because when we went back to practice, I just went back to playing the basic stuff I already knew how to do. And I had to actually listen to the recordings to learn the stuff that I laid down in the studio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So
So
when you guys linked up with Cybertrax, how did that happen? Like, I mean, obviously they heard Tim and they wanted to get involved, and then what, they set you up with a producer, or
well
did you guys have to find a producer? Like, how did that whole part come together?
that was Chad. I mean, Chad was the one who found Cybertrax to
Okay.
even want to release the record. And once we had a Zoom call with them, there was talks of different producers. And to be honest with you, I've never worked with a high class producer. So all the producers they were talking about, I really didn't even know who they were. You know,
Okay.
I mean, if anything, I knew Bill Stevens from the Descendants, you know, that he produced, you know, some stuff, but I never heard of Cameron Webb, you know, until they showed me the list of records that he had recorded and produced. And I'm like, oh, okay. I like some of those albums. So yeah, he's gonna be amazing. If he made these albums with these bands, you know, Alkaline Trio and Pennywise and Social D, Motörhead, Strung Out, you know, yeah, if he recorded these records, you know, I knew that he was gonna do
Do a great
wonders
job.
with ours. And so yeah, and then so, you know, I was a little like curious of working with producer because like I said, I've never been in a situation where I went into the studio and recorded a record for three weeks straight. I mean, anything that I ever recorded was done in 2 or 3 days, you know, full punk rock style, like real quick, get in there, do it, you know, mix it ourselves with the engineer. But it was a whole different experience with Cameron, you know, and he's a great guy. You know, we got along really well. We worked well together. He's definitely, I would add him as our 5th member of the band.
Okay.
As far as like, if we ever record another record, I would love to go to Cameron because he knows the way we write. He knows our style of music, and he just has a really good ear for recording. You know, he can tell if something's off. If first time I ever recorded with an engineer that said, "Hey, you got to play that over," and I'm like, "Why?" He's all, "Because I heard you bend the note a little bit," and I'm like,
Wow.
"Whoa, like you heard that?" And he's like, "Yep," and you know, so you know, it was a really unique experience, and I think you know, and still going into the studio and recording, I don't even know these guys very well. You know, I've only known these guys for 10 months, or
Sure.
at least Chad for 5 months. You know, and I had just met Dylan and just met Tim, so I've been learning. You know, learning to work with these guys and also getting to know them at the same time. You know, but the fact that they are established musicians, I think it works well when you have people that know how to play an instrument and have done this routine before, and they're cool guys that you can really put something special together. And we just have a really good connection. And you know, like I said, I'm still getting to know these guys and knowing my boundaries. You know, of how to act around them, and you know, and obviously they have a lot of respect for me because they know me from skateboarding,
Sure.
and they're big fans of skateboarding. But you know, it's any band situation, it's a touchy thing. There's a lot of egos, there's a lot of relationships, there's a lot of communication, how you present yourself, how you speak to people, you know, how you try to formulate a creative process without stepping on someone's toes or hurting someone's feelings of like, hey, I don't like this. I think it would sound better if it sounded like this. Maybe you shouldn't play it that way. You know, it's a difficult thing, you know.
Yeah, because it's their art or what they are playing. They are made passionate about it, and you're like, yeah, you know that. Let's not go with that. It could be crushing to some. You know, you have to have kind of some thick skin.
You do. And I know that they respected me a lot, so I knew they listened to me a little bit, but I didn't want to use that as like a crutch or something like to gain some like control of the band. I just want to let them know that, hey, I'm like an even member here. And if there's something that you think that you can disagree with me, you know, but I care about projects a lot. I care about creative things, and I have a lot to say, and I know what I like. And I just hope that they trusted me, you know. It's the same as like, you know, leaving that band that I was in for a year. Like, you know, I knew I loved Tim's voice. I knew I loved the songs that he was writing enough to leave this band. And that was my voice of saying like, okay, you guys don't want to go this route. Well, I'm going this way, you know. And that's how, you know, serious and how much I care about the projects that I'm in. And I just want them to be the best thing ever. You know, everything that I'm a part of, or anything that I want to create and show people, I want to do the best job I can, and with the best people, and cut the drama out and just be professional, and let's do this, let's get it done. And I feel like, you know, we have a great connection with this band so far. You know, I mean, we've come a long way, and I think it has a lot to do with our experience and the people that we know, and all our connections. I've been using every connection that I've ever created since, you know, I got into skateboarding. So I have 40 years of experience of people I know, you know, and same with all these other guys. They know a lot of people in different areas. So we just use our connections pretty much to get where we've gotten, you know.
Yeah, and you
And
have some huge features on the record. I mean, to get Jim of Pennywise, and you have
yeah,
Toby of H2O is on the album. Like, talk to me about getting those people to contribute to the record.
Well, I thought it would be kind of cool, and just to add something really cool to the record is to have some invited artists help create a buzz and a hype to it.
Mm-hmm.
And Toby, and he owed me because I had appeared on one of his last albums, and I went and recorded on the song Skate. It was the second track on their last album, and I even recorded a music video with them as well at the Van Skate Park. So I already had participated in his band, so I was like, okay, this guy's got to do something for our band. And so he couldn't say no.
He owed you a favor.
He had a favor to do. So that was an easy one. The hard one was Jim. Jim was the one that was like not hard to convince, but harder to like wonder if he's actually going to want to do this. And I've known Jim for a long time, just being on the band's Warped Tour, and I've played with Pennywise a few times, hopping on stage with them. And I do this collective, this punk rock and paintbrush collective. Yeah, and he's part of the book that we just released for punk rock and paintbrushes, and we've done some photo shoots together. And I've just, I've made friends with Jim over the years, to the point where I was able to ask him, if he would like to appear on one of our records, or one of the songs. And he had worked with Cameron as well. So Cameron knew him as well. So, yeah, we asked and he said yes. And so he ended up able to lay a track down, on one of our songs, which is really cool. And the coolest thing is the fact that Jim has actually admitted that he actually likes our band a lot.
That's a good thing.
I think maybe that's the reason why he did it, versus just doing a favor for us. But he's into what we're doing. And I've talked to a lot of musicians that I've met, and I've just shown him the album, and I've showed him some songs like Nicola from Millencolin, Mike Coretta from MXPX, who else? Jason from Strung Out, Jim from Pennywise. And I've just been shooting these songs to them to see what they think. And we've been getting a lot of great feedback from these guys, so, and it's cool because I know these guys personally and the band doesn't. So when I text these guys and I get the response, I immediately screen grab and send it over to the band and go, check out what Jim says, or, check out what Nicola from Millencolin says about the songs, and they get super hyped. So
I just like they're probably super shook on that. Like, oh my gosh, like, because for me, growing up as a fan of all those bands, I would be like ecstatic if I knew they liked what I was doing musically. No, super cool. So, and to the point where like, I had like this event I did at Carrie Hart's and Pink's, and I remember I had to leave the studio one of the days we were recording to go do this event there, and I had Pink give a little shout out to the guys in the band and let them know that I was safe, because I was riding motorcycles there at their house, but let them know that I was safe, and that she was just, I said, can you say hello to, Chad and Dylan and Tim, and just wish them well on the record. And so I got to send that to them. They were pretty hyped. That's rad. Yeah. I love that. That's so rad. So the record's coming out in September?
September 24th is the release. We've already released one single called Gravity. And
the video's out too, which is a dope video.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So that was cool. That video came about with this friend of our singer, Tim. His name is Mario. He's done some local stuff around. He's in a band as well. We ended up recording that one at one of my old teammates, Mike McGill's rentals in Encinitas. Okay. He was fixing up the top story, 2-story rental, and the top story was empty, and I asked him if I could use that one day to record a music video.
That's awesome.
And he said, yeah. And so we recorded it there,
That's awesome. So that's the one that's out, and then you're releasing Wyoming, in a couple days now?
And on Wednesday, and we have a really cool video being produced, and I should be done tonight or tomorrow. Where a friend of mine from Spain, he's a 3D animator, has been working on this video for at least probably about a month or almost a month and a half or two, animation
Wow.
for the song Wyoming. So that's going to be really neat.
That'll be cool. I can't wait to see it. Are you guys in it? Is it going to be animated Steve in there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Animated Tim, animated Dylan, animated Chad, and it's based off this toy that this Japanese guy made of me, and so we use that as the start of my character, and
Okay.
then I just sent my friend Victor from Spain pictures of the rest of the guys, and he animated them and 3D animated them into characters. When you see a still of it, you think it looks like a toy. You think it looks like a group of toys. So it's pretty neat. It's pretty neat.
You guys should release the toys.
I know. I mean,
that would be sick merch. Like a little set.
I know.
Well, I can't wait to see that video.
My toy connections there.
Yeah, that song is a rad song on the record too.
Thank you.
Doesn't it? It kicks off the album, right?
Yeah, that's the opening track. So Wyoming is the opening track for Chasing Horizons. And so we're going to try to release one more single right before, I think the day before the album hits. And then we actually ended up going to record or film a music video with Toby from H2O.
Oh, cool.
For another song.
For the song that he's featured in?
Yes.
Oh, okay, cool.
And that song is called Avalanches. So that video will probably come out already after the album is released, but it's going to be filmed by the same guy that did our first video, Mario.
Rad.
Yeah.
And are you guys doing a tour? Are you playing some festivals? I did see.
We're playing a couple cool festivals. One is Punk Rock Bowling.
Yeah, that'll be the one in Vegas, right? That's the Vegas one.
Yep, that's a 3-day event. There's another 3-day event we're playing in Redondo Beach called Beach Life.
Oh, cool. Is that a new event? I haven't heard that one.
It's the second year it's happening. Okay. And we're actually playing on the Speakeasy stage, and that we're going to be playing acoustically.
Oh, wow. Have you done that before?
No.
Nervous at all for acoustic?
Not really, because a lot of our songs were written on acoustic guitar by our singer. So he's already pretty much got them down. You know, it'll just be us trying to put that together acoustically. You know, I think it's fun. I think it changes the dynamic of the music once again. And it really gets us a chance to really hear our vocals and learn how to harmonize better with each other. But I've been listening to a lot of punk rock bands from the 90s re-release their songs acoustically. I don't know if you know,
like Face to Face did that, right? Yeah, they did a rad version of their song.
Yeah, that's one of my favorites. Face to Face is one of them. Rise Against is another one.
Oh yeah, they did.
Also Alkaline Trio. Strung Out has done one. And one of my favorites is Tony Sly from No Use for Name and Joey Capes from Lagwagon.
Unwritten Law did one.
Yep.
They did one on Cybertrax, actually.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, their acoustic record came out on Cybertrax.
Okay. So, you know, eventually I would love to put out a whole acoustic album as well.
That'd be cool.
In the future. But I've been listening to that, and I just really love the way it kind of changes the dynamic of the song. And there's been some songs acoustically that I've heard from other bands that I actually like them acoustically rather than hearing them plugged in. You know, because I first heard them acoustically, and then when I heard them plugged in, I'm like, oh, I love the acoustic version better.
Right. You know? Yeah. There's something about it. Like they say, if you can play a song like on a guitar and a campfire-y, it's like, you know, it's hits.
And I think Jim from Pennywise is working on one as well. It should be released pretty soon too.
Rad. You doing Pennywise songs or new stuff?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it is.
That's cool.
But yeah, so Jim is the one that put together the speakeasy stage at Beach Fest. So that's how I got on that as well. It's like
Oh, okay.
I heard through Emily from Punk Rock and Paintbrushes that we were going to show some art there at this festival, and Jim's putting together, has is part of it. And so I said, hey, is there any way that we can get Urethane on this festival? He's all, well, the bands that are playing are not really hardcore punk, type style bands, or more, family oriented, but I have this acoustic stage. If you guys want to play acoustically, you can play. So I'm like,
Wow.
yes, we'll do it, and so we got on the bill.
That's awesome. And then you
Yeah.
guys, you're doing some shows with Dead Kennedys too?
Yeah, we have a show with Dead Kennedys. We have a couple shows with the Agent Orange. We just got a couple shows with Strung Out, and then one we're going to be playing at the Soma with Pennywise.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
So a lot of stuff. That's awesome.
and we just played last weekend with Guttermouth.
Oh, I saw that. You did
Big
that one,
Bear.
Big Bear? How was that
Yeah.
show?
That was great. That was our first official show, pretty much.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Was that the first time you had played to people? And I mean, aside from this band, since everything shut down?
Pretty much. I mean, we played a couple months prior to that to like a benefit show for a friend of ours that passed away.
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like up at Alpine, up,
Okay.
Down San Diego area.
Yeah, like Southeast San Diego.
Southeast, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a small little bar up there. We did a little kind of like a little show there with a couple bands, but I want to say that this first show that we did at Big Bear was actual a real show, with a stage and lights and a bar and everything. Yeah.
What was the energy like? People
It was great.
Probably going wild. I mean, maybe their first show in a year and a half.
No, for sure. It was good. It was a good vibe, and it gave us a chance to know what it's like to be on stage with each other, and so it's always a new learning experience, and what we need to remember, what we need to do to make each show better and better.
I love it. Well,
Yeah.
And what about, are you having a chance to skate lately?
I was supposed to actually go skating
Right now?
right now,
but I got to talk to this idiot over Zoom.
I remember that I had to do this Zoom call, and I'm like, okay, well, I better not go skate, and I better just sit here and take care of the Zoom call, and then maybe go.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll let you go here in a second, and you can go skate. You're in San Diego. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I live in Carlsbad.
Okay, it's funny. My family and I, we just moved to Nashville from San Diego. I'm born and raised there. I grew up there, and Clash at Claremont, all that stuff. But yeah, we just moved out to Nashville. We love it here, but San Diego is always home to me. That's cool.
Well, I didn't make it down south until 2014.
Oh, really? Were you up in LA or Huntington?
I was born and raised in San Jose, California.
And you just stayed in San Jose?
Stayed in San Jose, Campbell area for most of my life, and then decided to move down here and spend the rest of my life in Southern California. But I pretty much lived up in NorCal for 49 years.
Really? Well, I didn't realize that you're up there for that long. I worked up in San Francisco for a little bit on the radio up there, and then I was in San Diego on the radio at 91X for a handful of years, and now I'm here in Nashville. But yeah, I love San Diego, and that's awesome that you're there now. Very cool. And thank you so much, Steve, for doing this, man. This is really it's been rad. I really appreciate your time.
Oh no, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I have one more question for you, and then you can go skate. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Any advice? I would just say, for inspiring artists, just follow your heart and play what you want to play, and just keep practicing and be, become the best musician that you can, and just hook up with people that you feel comfortable with, that you can work with, especially when you're starting a band. It's easy to play an instrument by yourself, but when you're learning to have a relationship with other people and working with other people, that's where it gets kind of rough, and you have to be open-minded, and you have to give and take. And it's a tough, I tried to start some bands with other people that I liked, and they were friends of mine, but we just didn't work professionally, so and just don't always wait for other people to take care of things for you. Just be a go-getter, and when you have a bunch of go-getters in a band, you get somewhere, but if you're always waiting around for someone to do something for you, it's just going to take longer for you to get to where you want to be. So I would just say, be positive and be a go-getter and get things done. Like if you talk about, hey, because sometimes there's people in bands like, hey, it'd be kind of cool if we had t-shirts, and then it just leaves it like that. It's like, well, the guy that's saying, hey, I think it'd be kind of cool to have t-shirts should be the one researching that and making it happen, So I would say if you have an idea, go, stick with it and go for the idea. Don't wait for other people to do stuff for you.